Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of our Pride Perspectives here from the campus at Trinity-Pawling School. We're very excited this evening to bring you the power of mentoring boys and how that affects our students on campus, and how it is a really important topic for students these days. First and foremost, though, Happy New Year and welcome to this edition of the first one of 2025. My name is Jeff Beck. I'm the Director of Admission here at Trinity-Pawling School. This is my fourth year, and I'm excited to be back on a panel here to share with you more information about what makes Trinity-Pawling incredible and unique for its students. Alongside myself here, we have our head of school, Bill Taylor, who will be hosting and directing this evening, as well as the Director of College Counseling and History teacher, Slade Mead. We have our Director of the CLA and Senior Form Advisor, Mr. Chris Gilman, also class of 2005. We have a science teacher and our Entrepreneurship Institute leader, Mike Weber, parent of a 17 and 18 grad, as well as a science teacher and one of our athletic trainers, Emily Tucci, a parent of a current student graduating in the class of 2028. So we are very excited to have incredible panelists with us this evening. We're also extremely happy that our students are back on campus. Although the temperatures are chilly here on campus, the vibe is nice and warm with the students getting the start of the new year and start of the winter term going today. So we're all very excited to be back on campus here in the new year. With that said, I'd like to pass it over to Bill to say hello and get us going for this evening.
Thank you, and good evening, everybody, and thank you for taking some of your time to spend with us and learn more about Trinity-Pawling as we talk a little bit about the school through the lens of mentorship. And mentorship is something that here at Trinity-Pawling we talk a lot about, but it's worthwhile to step back and just sort of redefine it, I think, just in general terms, as the idea of providing guidance toward personal growth from one person to another. Often professionally, I've had a number of wonderful mentors who have influenced my professional life. But here at Trinity-Pawling, we talk about teaching through the lens of mentorship, and that's really what we want to talk about tonight. And mentorship as it relates to young people, specifically teenagers, and then we'll talk about really specifically teenage boys, but in general, just in terms of the role that mentorship can play with adolescents is incredibly powerful. And you can see it when it's there, and you can see it when it's not there. Sadly, there are many students who have never heard the term mentorship. Many students across the country, high school students that are not sort of aware that that is a thing. And then there are those who are, and they know who their mentors are. They know they have a mentor. They can cite specific people. And these are people, whether it's a teacher or in a professional capacity, people that generally can see strengths in others that the other person hasn't yet discovered in themselves yet. And for young people, that is extremely powerful and important. When high school students report having a mentor, they feel more connected to their school. They feel more confident in what they're doing at school. They feel healthier about themselves. When young people report having had mentors in their educational experience in high school, they're far more likely to go to college than those who don't report having mentors in high school, and they have higher expectations of themselves and their outcomes for learning. And not surprising, the longer a mentoring relationship lasts, the greater the value is for the high school student. So having a mentor for a full year or multiple years just exponentially increases the impact, the positive impact of that relationship. And so when we think about mentoring skill sets, um, and we talk about this a lot here at Trinity-Pawling, especially with new faculty who come on board. We're, of course, talking about relationships uh, and building relationships with young people. And that requires a knowledge of adolescence and really specifically an awareness that a teenager is a young person who is becoming. They're not fully their adult self yet. They're in that active process of becoming, and they're discovering who they are as individuals. They're discovering their own self-awareness. And that is an essential aspect of becoming. And so, what mentors do in that context, and what teachers, what gifted teachers do specifically in that context, is they're able to see the gifts and talents in students before the students even fully aware of those gifts and talents themselves. Um, Another important skill set is for the mentor is sort of a pervasive sense of optimism, uh, which is really important because education is all about potential and reaching potential, and it requires optimism. If you can't be optimistic, you probably are not going to be a very effective teacher, and certainly aren't going to be an effective mentor. Um, it involves taking engaged interest in other people, and specifically young people. And then I would also talk about the importance of being actively curious as a mentor. And these are all, not surprisingly, important aspects of being a really great teacher. Teachers have to be actively curious. And another key aspect of mentorship in that skill set is the ability to provide helpful guidance and feedback. Uh, and and because that in and of itself is teaching. Um, and when I think about mentorship, I think about a mentor that I had in high school. And his name was Sam Hugus. Mr. Hugus taught history, and and he was fabulous. You know, he was a really interesting teacher. He taught history in the context of sort of storytelling, but he also saw something in me. I was I went to public school, a very good public school, but it was a large public school. And so I was one of 27, 28 people in the classroom. I didn't talk much in class, but he could tell I was really interested in history. And so he would call on me, and which I hated at the time. I hated teachers that would call on me in class, but it got me comfortable speaking in class, and he gave me validation when I spoke in class. And then he would keep me after class and talk about more about the class. When I turned in a paper, he turned it back, and it was, full of red marks. And he spent hours with me after school working on how I can tighten up my writing. Uh, and and so those were gifts to me, and I could tell that this was a teacher who really cared about me, and it made an incredible influence. I went on to be a history teacher, and and have written a lot and continue to write a lot. Uh, and I wouldn't have probably had that confidence or skill sets if it wasn't for Mr. Hughes. So I'd like to ask the others on the panel, who were mentors for you when you were in high school, and what strengths did you see in them and they saw in you?
I can go first, Bill. I was fortunate to have many mentors along the way. In particular, I'm just thinking of my grandfather and my father, but also my coaches and my teachers. But specifically, when I was asked about, and you asking me about this, I'm thinking about Jim Hearn. And Jim Hearn was also a history teacher, my 10th grade history teacher. And they called him Homework Hearn. And there's a reason why they call them homework Hearn. You know, for me, also he understood me, but it was the first time I was really pushed, and he instilled a lot of motivation in me, especially for a desire for deeper thinking and deeper learning. I did the same thing, Bill, as you. I stayed a lot of time after school with homework Hearn, but he did in a way that was compassionate and supportive. And I needed that early in my high school career. I needed that growth push catalyst from him. So homework Hearn for me.
I'll go ahead and jump in. This gentleman, John Wynn, I'm still in touch with, and I left high school over 40 years ago. John and I talk probably 3 or 4 times a year. And it's interesting, Bill, because you were talking about it in the context of a public school, and I was at a private school, at a boarding school, and my relationship with John, which was so interesting with John Wynn, he is a history teacher, by the way, and there seems to be a theme of history teachers here. But it wasn't just what I learned from him about being a student, it was how to be a person. I had spent a lot of time at the family's house, all 4 kids. I've been to some of their weddings. I'm still in touch with some of the children of the faculty member. And it's when my natural parents died, John Wynn was the first person I turned to. And I remember calling him both when my dad passed and when my mom passed. So it's been a really life-changing relationship from a teacher from a high school.
I can go here. I was obviously fortunate enough to come to Trinity-Pawling, and Mr. Taylor, Mrs. Tucci, and Mr. Weber, obviously, we're all here, but you guys had big impacts on me. But looking back, I think about a former math teacher, not a history teacher, but and he was the dean of students, and his name was Steve Harrington. And I was a 6-year student here. I was a day student, so I had an advisor my 7th and 8th grade year, and when I was moving into 9th, my advisor, which I loved, moved away for family reasons, and I was in search for a new advisor. And I got paired up with Mr. Harrington. I obviously didn't know much about him. Being the dean of students, I was very well behaved. So I didn't have much crossover with him, but his nickname was Papa Bear. And there's a reason for that. And he was a gentle and kind figure, and in terms of a father figure, but also Papa Bear, a bear meaning you didn't want to cross him, and he certainly held you accountable. So I was fortunate enough to get paired with him, and it was a life-changing experience for me. I would say he was an incredible mentor and showed me a lot and helped me through a lot. Like I said, I was a day student, but I would find myself sitting in his office quite a bit during free periods after school. When I would come back for advisee dinners, I would oftentimes spend hours in his apartment after dinner and just hanging out and talking. And I think his approach to Trinity-Pawling and how he mentored students was something that I still try to do right now, coming back to work, and sort of have his personality and his demeanor, and being able to be relatable to the students, but making sure that they're being held accountable. So I owe a lot to him, and he was my advisor for 4 years and my coach. And I still keep in touch with him. He comes back to reunions. When I see him, we pick up like we never, missed a beat, and it says a lot. But yeah, he was very special to me.
The first 2 people that came to mind for me were the 2 athletic trainers that I had in high school. I tore my ACL as a freshman in like the first 2 weeks of high school. And it was super trying and really hard. What I thought was gonna, the sports I thought I was gonna play and everything I thought I was gonna be involved with changed really quickly. And, there's a lot of statistics out there about injury and mental health and things like this. And I certainly fell, within a lot of those dialogues. And the 2 athletic trainers in my high school really gave me a place to belong. And, You know, they saw that I wanted to be involved in sports and I wanted to, you know, kind of still have those experiences that I thought I was going to have as a freshman. And yeah, they really took me under my wing. And obviously, you know, I'm an athletic trainer today because of their mentorship to me.
Right.
Yeah. And for me, I think that part of it is that I don't know if I had the language to identify the mentor when I was in high school. And I can think back now, and I'm very fortunate that somebody that was looking out for me that is also now probably still a mentor to me is actually a current director of admission. So it wasn't necessarily something I anticipated wanting to become, but a director of admission at a previous school of mine, who was also a coach of mine, was certainly somebody that looked out for me. And he wasn't only ever talking to me about hockey or just about my interest in that sport, but he was always checking in about how my family was doing, and you know, cared a little bit more. And I didn't realize it. I didn't understand the language of it at the time to call it a mentor. And I've been fortunate to be in this industry and be able to continue to see my mentor. And the most recent that I've seen him, I was in Korea and we happened to run into the same, we were in the same hotel and we ran into each other in the lounge in Korea at a hotel, which was, you know, kind of fun. We were able to chat there on the other side of the world for about an hour, which was really impactful. But again, I think we'll continue to get into this as to the intentionality that Trinity-Pawling has. And but that was somebody that certainly springs to mind when I think of mentor, and my opportunities and the opportunities that I've had to be involved in students' lives. You know, I hope that I'm able to make those same impacts for those students moving forward as everybody else is here.
Well, thank you all for sharing those stories. And, you know, what they have in common is outcomes. I mean, you know, mentors build confidence, they create safety, they touch lives, they inspire. You know, I became a history teacher, you know, not directly related to the mentor I had, but the mentor made me love history. And then I continued that exploration. So that sense of tapping into a person's interests, strengths, and talents. And all of your mentors sort of shared those aspects in common. You know, when we go through the hiring process for teachers here, and when at the previous school that I led, I did the same thing. And I ask anybody who comes in for an interview for any type of position at Trinity-Pawling, it doesn't have to be a teaching position, any position. I asked, tell me about a teacher in high school that made an impact on your life and why. And what I'm really looking for is I'm seeing if that person's face lights up. The story that they will give me is important, and I enjoy listening to it. But what's really is important is, does their face change? Do they get a sort of a sparkle in their eye? And I can see it if it happens, and I can see it if it doesn't happen. And when it does happen, which it happens most of the time, it signifies to me that that this person knows what mentorship is. They may not know it by that name, but they could recognize somebody that made an impact in their life when they were in the process of becoming. And when their face lights up, they're recognizing, yes, this is that person, or these are those people that did that for me. And sometimes I'll ask the question in the opposite way. Tell me about a relationship in high school that didn't work out so well. And then I see if they pivot to the relationship that did. But those are really important questions for me in the hiring process, because when we hire somebody here, we're looking for somebody that's going to see their work as being that of a mentor, not just teaching math or science or history or English, but being a mentor to young people by teaching math, history, science, or English, or working in an administrative department. I believe that everybody who works in schools is an educator. And I believe that everybody who works in schools should also be a mentor. And they at least need to recognize that that's the expectation, certainly of this school. And Slade, when you were talking about your mentor, you talked about, going to his house. Well, I know you went to a boarding school, and boarding schools offer very distinctive advantages in this process of developing a mentoring relationships with young people. These boarding schools have the distinct advantage of time and broader, deeper relationships because of time. And the day students who are at Trinity-Pawling or at any boarding school, if they're going to get the most out of that experience, they need to devote that time. So the day students who are at Trinity-Pawling, the vast majority of them are here a lot because they know that that is an added benefit of things that are going on after classes, the ability to see a teacher for extra help, for example. 90% of our teachers live here on campus. The events that go on, social events, speaking events, opportunities for learning outside of the classroom. Those are opportunities for relationships to forge at a deeper level. We get to see students in boarding schools in lots of different roles and capacities. We see them in the classroom, but we see them hanging out with their friends. We see them in the dormitory. We see them at meals. We see them joking with friends, how they comport themselves as they walk down halls and so forth. And they see us, the adults, in similar ways. They see us teaching classes or, leading different administrative responsibilities or helping maintain the campus. They see us walking our dogs, raising our kids. They see us eating meals. Sometimes we're sharing meals. Often we're sharing meals. And that community aspect in boarding school is very, very important. There was a survey of boarding schools done last, students in boarding schools done last spring. And 88% of students in boarding schools are more likely to have one or more trusted adults in school than those who do not go to boarding school. And that speaks to the time aspect and the relationships that build over time. And boarding school students are 26% more likely to say schools help them achieve their goals. And these are compared to independent day schools, not to all schools, but to independent schools, tuition charging schools. So Jeff, I have a question for you. You've attended 2 boarding schools. You were a student at one, then a postgraduate at another. You've worked in a couple different boarding schools in the admissions office. From your perspective, why is mentorship so important in a boys' school? And how do you explain that to families who are interested in the school?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that I was thinking more about my answer and using the word language or vocabulary and intentionality around mentorship, even from our peer mentor program, right? From a student being paired up with a peer mentor before they arrive on campus to the other work that we're doing on campus is important. And I felt like maybe at the previous schools that I attended, I don't know if there was an intentionality around the understanding of mentorship and or how to communicate effectively with a mentor or what that looks like or how to maintain that relationship, which is why for me, perhaps I didn't understand that until later in life. But I do think that for students, and I had that question today, there was a family visiting asking about mentorship on campus. I think something that's really unique about our school and differentiates us is that we're 75% of our teachers are male teachers. And I usually say that it's easier for me to understand what it was like to be a teenage boy because I was one. It's hard for me to relate to a teenage girl because I don't know what that experience is like, and that's only fair. But furthermore, if you dig into more statistics, right, 90% of what boys believe to be true is it comes from their peers and or their mentors. not their parents, which is why my mom, for example, used to go, if JD was going to go jump off that bridge, would you go do it? And I was like, yeah, probably, because JD is my best buddy and he said it's okay. And the reality of that is that it's not based in facts, it's based in me just trusting what my buddy is doing. And so when you're surrounding your child with students that are handpicked by an admissions office, an admissions committee, we have an intentionality around our hiring process to make sure that we have mentors. It's only natural that our students then have the ability to connect with folks that are in different life cycles of their ability to provide that mentorship. We have students that are able to connect with younger faculty right out of college. We have other students that are able to connect with folks that have kids that have a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, like I do. That even some of the students will come and babysit. We also have folks that are, we'll point out Mike Weber, who's a parent of 2 graduates and has a wealth of experience here, and students are able to connect with him. And so I think that the range of the type of mentor that we have here is really important. I think overall at a boarding school, mentorship should be something that is it shouldn't be a given. It needs to be identified as one of the differentiating factors between us and certainly day schools and public schools. But more so in a boys' school, it's vital for our boys to be seeing what this looks like and how they can be mentors, but also how to gain that independence and growth from that mentorship.
And I throw it out to the rest of the panel because you've all seen boys who have thrived here over your careers. And what do you think the role of mentorship has been in their success and growth?
It's really an interesting question, because I think one thing that we do very well, because we have a population where most everybody comes in as a 9th or a 10th grader. Okay, so they have 2 or 3 or 4 years to work on this mentorship. But we also, and I think it's a strength of the school, we have kids who come in as repeat juniors, and we have some postgraduates who aren't there for very long. And it's amazing to watch how quickly those kids who are not in the 4-year plan get a mentor so quickly. And I think it's especially true with the postgraduates. And I think our faculty has been very good about making sure those people feel very comfortable in the community and are available to be a mentor. So it's an interesting dynamic. For a 9th grader, you'll probably leave Trinity-Pawling with 3 or 4, maybe 5 mentors, because you've just had so many contact points. But even for the older kids who join us, I think it's just great that I'm still in touch with many postgraduates years after they've left Trinity-Pawling, who come back because I've become a mentor to them. So I kind of throw that out as an interesting sort of a diamond in the rough of what we do really, really well, that I think sometimes people don't realize how important it is for these young men who are almost college age, ready to go, to have a mentor at the high school level.
I also think it's important to note for listeners and parents that this is something that we work really hard at here as a faculty group. And I think that mentorship, and I think you're right, Slade, that I think the great thing about Trinity-Pawling, and because of the size of the community, is many of our boys, I'd say a majority of our boys, come out with several, if not a handful of strong mentors. And I think that's I think it's a really important for unlocking. And we talk here at Trinity-Pawling a lot, you've probably seen it on the website and so on, about making a transformational difference in our boys. And that transformation for me, I see as unlocking growth potential, unlocking a mindset for growth. And mentorship is definitely the catalyst of that transformation. And anecdotally for me, as a parent of a 17 graduate and an 18 graduate, that mentorship is deeply rooted in, or rooted in deep and trusted relationships that developed over time. I know that my boys leaned on many faculty, for direction, for advice, how to approach problems, emotional support, and sometimes correction. And they were both comfortable with this. It led one of my younger son, Joe, to who was a 3-sport athlete. By the time he was a junior, he was jumping into in leadership in our theater. My son Larry, right, because of the mentors that he had along the way, he was confident enough, self-aware enough to take a year abroad during his junior year. That's exactly what we're looking for, is a transformational difference. And for them, right, that self-awareness, that confidence, that curiosity, and again, I say motivation for deeper learning, like I had back with my mentor, that was really, really important for them and their success later on.
I think what makes it so unique too is our community, right? And like you said, Mike, like how hard we work on it. But I think there's times where, I'm fortunate enough to work with the senior class, and I'll be talking to them and during a meeting, or we'll do different things, and they don't even realize that they are a mentor to somebody younger, to your point, Slade, right? Because it's so natural here, right? And it doesn't matter if you're a 1-year PG, right? You're older than that freshman or that sophomore that's been here for 2 years, right? Or that maybe he's here in middle school, he's been here for 4 years, but you just assume sort of that natural leadership, right? Or that mentorship role. So I think that's also a cool thing and a unique thing to see is, these relationships. And then you sort of, you might point it out to me like, hey, that kid really looks up to you. And he's like, I don't think so. He does, right? Because we work on it so much and we talk about it, and it's instilled in our community, and you get to know every boy in every sort of different capacity, that it's really a cool thing to sort of watch it unfold and watch kids sort of become, right? And have that sort of self-awareness and that growth. But it's really cool to watch it all sort of unfold.
I think I'd just like to add, I'm just trying to think from a prospective parent aspect, or even potentially if there's alums on tonight. I guess, yes, there is a mentorship program and there's a peer mentorship program. We have a faculty mentorship program, but mentorship also happens just very naturally. The best example, I guess the first comes to my mind is in the dining hall. We have family style meals, and so kids have the opportunity to sit with faculty members that maybe they don't have a class with. They don't have them as the teacher, they don't have them as a coach, but for 3 weeks, they'll sit with them in the dining hall. And they'll also sit with PGs at the table, 12th graders, 11th graders, and so on. And so these kids that might not be in class together and are getting to sit down and have a meal together and talk together with teachers that they don't associate with or see every day. They might not live with them or have them, but those are just other ways that naturally kids are going to have the opportunity to mentor other kids, and kids also find other adults at the school that they can connect with.
Those are all just excellent points. And I just want to underscore why this is so important in a boys' school. And perhaps some people on the webinar have been on other webinars that we've done that have outlined sort of the challenges for boys. But the data for boys in schools right now is not terribly great. Only 40% of the matriculating college freshmen are young men. And only 20% of the nation's valedictorians in high school are boys or young men. Only 25% of honor roll members in American high schools are boys. And so that data sort of all suggests that boys are not terribly engaged in school. academically, and sometimes socially. In independent schools, only 34% of boys report being motivated to get good grades. And then even lower number, 18% of boys feel motivated to learn at all. And so, boys are not finding a whole lot of motivation or engagement in schools in general. And going back to the data that I talked about early, having these mentoring relationships and the importance of community that several of my colleagues just underscored, those are catalysts for engagement. Those are catalysts for building confidence. They are catalysts for self-awareness. And it's important in any school for both boys and girls. But for boys, having that engagement pushes back against what appears to be a larger trend of being disengaged, or just appearing to be engaged and not being genuinely engaged. And that is extremely important. And it's one of several reasons why we spend so much time working on this as a school and being deliberate about that. And the other thing that we're deliberate about is creating an environment, or working to create an environment where vulnerability is celebrated. And this is part of mentorship, because I think if you're in that type of mentoring relationship, you're gonna be vulnerable. But vulnerability is critically important to self-awareness, and this self-awareness is really at the core of our mission that Mike, you just referenced, about making a transformational difference in the lives of our students by enabling them to discover and pursue their distinctive gifts and talents. That is our mission. I mean, that's the mission statement. And this idea of each student here, each member of this community having distinctive gifts and talents is central to our mission. And it's the teachers are the ones who are actually helping the boys discover their gifts and talents. And the teachers are the critical players in this dynamic, because they are seeing the students day in, day out in the classroom, the teachers that the boys are seeing in the dormitory or as advisors. Those relationships are critically important. I think this idea of self-awareness is also central to our own identity, and focus as an Episcopal school. This idea of self-awareness is at the core of our effort challenge. Really using effort and celebrating effort as a means of self-discovery, and building motivation. This idea of self-awareness is at the core of the practicum that we've spoken about project-based learning, and it's really at the core of these institutes for active learning, creating that sense of joy and appreciation for learning in different ways outside of the classroom, being more active. So I'd like to turn to the panel and ask others to comment about the role that self-awareness and self-discovery plays in the experience of boys here at Trinity-Pawling, and also through the lens of mentorship. And so, Emily, maybe I'll start with you.
Okay, I would say, I just think that at TP, there is just the opportunity to try new things in a really healthy environment, where kids are going to be supportive. And, many times this happens here, I feel like, in plays. I know Mike Weber talked about his son, Joe, who never thought he would do a play. And he ended up really getting involved in plays. again, because he felt comfortable and he felt like, you know, it's something that he could try and in a safe way, and you know, really put himself out there. And it was so fun to watch.
Chris, what about you?
No, to Emily's point, I think I think I'm a huge component of our clubs and activities. I think that's a great sort of way for, you know, obviously we encourage all of our students to join clubs and activities, but I think, you know, every club has a faculty leader, but then there's also a student leader or leaders that help facilitate and help recruit members for the clubs and activities. And that's a really good way for students to connect on a level of, you know, similar interests that they may have. If both students really love fishing, they want to be in the fishing club, but then also for students to then take some healthy risks and chances and say, well, I've never fished before, but you know, my best buddy is the student leader. I'm going to go hang out with him on the pond, you know, for a few hours and fish. So I think there's a lot of, you know, like I said, we work on it a lot, but there's also a lot of little hidden gems that I think that get overlooked, that, you know, that's a huge piece of, you know, a student's development here and growth and transformational differences is through the clubs and activities. And I think that doesn't happen without sort of our student leader mentorship within those clubs and activities, pulling guys in and encouraging them to try new things and to take chances and give things a shot, and it ends up working out really well.
To piggyback on that, I just think about, you know, Webb's leads the Entrepreneurship Institute, and within the last few years since that started, there's now an entrepreneurship club. And I think that, you know, stems directly from, you know, this idea that the kids have been able to kind of dabble in that. It's certainly for the younger kids. If you're a senior and you're in that leadership or the entrepreneurship group or leadership group or citizenship, whatever it might be, you're working the whole year in that. But for those kids then to reach out to another adult and say, you know, I want to start a club. I want to get other kids excited. I want to, you know, roundtable discuss what that means and what we can get started and create is really a wonderful thing too.
I think for me, I think self-awareness comes from all these experiences. We're talking about fishing, we're talking about entrepreneurship club, we're talking about entrepreneurship institute. They have so many opportunities for new experiences here, from sitting with faculty at lunch, as we talked about, for, you know, sitting in an advisor's home and maybe doing homework and having a meal or a snack. You're living in the dorm with faculty, you're living in dorm with older students. You're finding new interests. You can do that in a safe environment. And, you know, we put students in a lot of situations where they have to practice also being in the spotlight. So this healthy risk taking, all of these things, they get stronger and stronger at because of relationships that they build with their peers and their faculty. They become comfortable becoming, you know, being uncomfortable and trying new things. And, you know, I feel like we cultivate that because of the strength of our faculty. You know, I would always describe Trinity-Pawling from the beginning, and the reason why I took this job is this is a place where great people are, and they take care of students. They know what they're doing. They take care of kids. They support them, and that fosters growth. And ultimately, they become more aware. And when they become aware, I think that makes them open to vulnerability, open to empathy, open to inclusion. And I'm harping back on sort of that deeper learning. You know, Bill mentioned some of the data. You know, that motivation for deeper curiosity and learning is something that we need among boys today. The data is showing that's going the other way, and I think our boys are, as we said, bucking the trend because they've had these experiences, and the relationships offer them comfort, and the peer relationships offer them comfort in doing whatever they want to do.
Could I, Bill, take this a little bit different direction and talk about how all this impacts the college process, because at the end of the day, we are a preparatory school getting these young men ready for college. And it's fascinating because I get to see the end result and the impact that these gentlemen have on the college reps and the admissions committees. Michael says taking healthy risks. Well, we have about 100 colleges come through every fall, and the kids go and the seniors go and they meet with these college reps. And I am floored at how well our kids do in these, what can be very awkward or anxious ridden meetings, because you're meeting the college rep. Our guys come through with flying colors. And I think a lot of it is the confidence that they've gained. Maybe it was from having to do a GCC where they had to speak in front of people, or the independence of doing a senior independent project, or just the learning from the older kids or learning from the faculty. Our kids handle themselves so well. And it's not uncommon. I know that's a double negative, so I'll put it the other way. It's common that after I have a college visit with a college rep visit, they'll come into my office and they're like, what's going on with your kids? I mean, these guys, they're answering questions. They're looking you in the eye. And I've had situations, I had 2 this year, okay, where the college rep said, if this student applies, we're going to take him. I don't even care what his grades are right now. I want that kid on our college campus. And that's a really gratifying thing to hear from my office. And I kind of want to share this with Michael and Emily and Chris and Jeff, because you guys don't get to see this like I do. It's really, it gets me fired up when our kids are visiting. I also see it with our what's called the secondary school report letters, and what we do. And hopefully we don't have a lot of other schools listening to these sessions, because I don't want them to do this, because it's kind of our secret sauce. But our secondary school letters, and this is really good if you're a parent or a prospective student, that's the big letter that goes in the application process. Not a teacher rec, it's bigger. What's your son like on the dorm, on the athletic field, in the dining hall, or around campus? And we write them not from the college office, but from the faculty. So our faculty members know our kids so well that colleges will call me and say, it's your letter. We feel like we now know this student so well. So the structure that we've found ourselves in, and I think the practicum has been a great help. You see it, for instance, the entrepreneurship program that Michael leads. We have more kids applying to schools like Babson now than we've ever had apply. That's not coincidence. That's because these kids are getting hit hard with entrepreneurial thinking, and they get excited, and then they apply to the schools that will take that excitement further. So I'm seeing it from the college office every day that our kids are benefiting from this mentorship relationship. And thank you. Selfishly, I say thank you, because it makes it a lot easier, my job, if I have kids who are very engaged when they're meeting with college reps and out there looking in the college process.
Bill, can I just go back to something you mentioned earlier that I think needs a little bit more is in regards to the effort challenge and the role that plays. I think, as an advisor, as a coach and a dorm parent and a teacher, it's super rewarding and super helpful to work with a student in that capacity of especially the effort challenge, and making them more self-aware and vulnerable, and mentoring them into becoming a better student, a better leader, a better dorm member, a better community member, all the above, right? Because, what the effort challenge provides is a way for students, maybe they think they're working hard in the classroom because they're, you know, they're showing up, they're doing their homework, they're turning everything in, they're participating, and a teacher may throw them a 3 and they sort of are like, whoa, what this, you know, what else do I need to do? Well, you're able to talk them through ways that they can get a 2 or a 1, and it may push them a little bit more out of their comfort. Maybe the teacher's looking for them to help, you know, the kids sitting next to them sort of with work or get them back on track, or maybe they're, you know, really good when they participate in class and the teacher wants them to participate a little bit more. So there's ways that you're sort of pushing the student to, you know, become more self-aware and to grow in that area that I don't think, obviously, you know, many other schools have that ability to, right? You go to school, you get your numerical grade, and so be it. But the fact that you can get a 95 and a 3 and the teacher's looking for a little bit more out of you, if that doesn't help a student grow, then nothing will. And I see it obviously athletically and in the dorm, it's incredible to sort of, well, you know, I'm in my room, my room's clean. Well, what's your definition? Maybe there's a little bit more. Maybe there's a student that's struggling with some homesickness, and we, you know, there's different ways that you can pull these kids in, and that gets reflected in your effort grade, right? And I think that having that ability to sort of show that side of it is really important. And I know you mentioned the effort challenge and the ways that sort of pushes students, but, you know, I think that definitely is something that we have that is a unique advantage. And really, I think, you know, it helps our students definitely grow in ways that they may not know.
Yeah. I'd like to come back to the role of the advisor in all of this, because several of you have mentioned that. And that relationship is really important. And that's really how this all starts. Not everybody, you know, not every student is going to find their advisor is going to be their mentor. In most cases, that's who it is, but not in all cases. When a student first arrives here, we pair that student with an advisor based on our best estimation of a relationship that we think will work. Maybe it's common interest. Maybe they're going to be in the same dorm. Maybe the teacher's teaching the new student, but they're assigned when a student first arrives here. After that year, a student picks his advisor, and that it could be the person that was assigned, but the student has the opportunity to select somebody else. And if that relationship is not working the way that the student feels is as productive as he wants it to be, that student can change advisors. And there's no advisor who feels jilted by that, because this is all part of this process of building mentorship. Now, what we haven't talked about is what is part of the process when we feel that there isn't a connection, that there's not a relationship developing. And, you know, we just started this year for the first time a survey of faculty member. You're specifically asking them, how well do you know each student? And not surprisingly, you know, some of the students that the faculty collectively didn't know very well were brand new. And so if you're a teacher teaching mostly juniors and seniors, and you may not know a freshman very well, but we know who these students are now that need broader relationships. And the advisor is going to be central to that. We also have a weekly process. There are advisors, and then there's something called form advisors. And each grade level has a form advisor who's in charge of sort of overseeing the student health and their academic well-being and their adjusting well-being and so forth, their connectivity in each grade level. And those form advisors meet with me and others every week. And we talk about students, you know, who's doing really well, who can we do a little bit more with, you know, is this strategy working? Who's doesn't seem like they're connected at all? You know, how can we change this? You know, can we try a different approach? So we have multiple ways because we want this to be an organic process. Because, you know, a mentor doesn't get to choose who their, you know, the success of that relationship. I mean, the mentor, you know, is going to be extremely powerful in that, but unless the mentee feels good about the mentor and the mentorship, then it's not going to be as effective. And so we want students to really help to shape this process with our guidance and with many opportunities for exposure to different people and so forth. And speaking of surveys, I just want to conclude. I know we're coming up on our hour, and we just participated in a national survey of over 90 independent schools, day schools, and boarding schools, co-ed schools, I assume some other boys' schools. And the whole focus was on connection and belonging. And these are students that participated in. And right before we broke for vacation, I got the results back of where our students were in their response to these questions compared to the overall aggregate data. And I shared it with the faculty before we went on our break. And these are statements that students respond to in a Likert scale by saying, I feel I feel very strongly about this, or I strongly agree, I agree, I neither agree or disagree, I disagree, I strongly disagree. And the 4s and the 5s are the strongly agree and agree. And our data was heavily skewed towards 4s and 5s, as was the aggregate data. But we did better than the aggregate data in all categories except for 2 or 3 where we were tied. But here's just a few of the statements where our responses were higher, in some cases significantly higher than the aggregate data from across the country. There is at least one trusted adult that I can talk to at my school. Our data was significantly higher than the aggregate. I feel well supported at school as I strive to meet my potential. I feel emotionally safe while at school. I feel prepared in making choices that support my emotional well-being. Significantly higher on that one. They're all significantly higher. I feel prepared to handle stressful situations. I feel prepared coping with peer pressure. I feel prepared conducting myself with confidence. The school encourages a love of learning in me, and I'm passionate about at least one subject at school. Now, I share those last 2 ones to circle back to the data I shared at the beginning about independent schools, boys in independent schools not feeling connected to learning or worrying about grades so much. And the last thing I'm going to say as part of our deliberate structure is we no longer have a new faculty orientation program for our new hires every year. We have the McGregor-Robinson mentoring program. We no longer have an in-service like most schools where teachers come for faculty meetings for the first couple days at the beginning of the school year, and then they stay at the end for out service. We have the McGregor-Robinson mentoring objectives for the year. And then we still have the meetings, but they're grounded in what are the objectives that we as a school want to pursue with regard to becoming better at developing mentorship. And the McGregor-Robinson is important because he was a director of admissions here. He was a gifted advisor and just a exceptional school person. And he was here for 17 years. And he was a gifted mentor. He was a natural mentor. And right before he passed away, he really felt very strongly that the school needed to continue to be very deliberate in teaching mentorship because he felt that it was a skill that if we weren't deliberate in teaching could go away. And so we've always been really good at this as a school, I feel, but I think grounding this in the life and legacy of McGregor-Robinson has allowed us to be even more passionate about it. Now, Jeff, I know there may be some questions that have come in.
There was one. I feel as though that it was answered based on it was hoping to hear a little bit more if there were any specific things that we do. But I think ultimately, or if it falls on the student, I think we ultimately answered that in the sense that there are some specific things we do, as in the peer mentoring program through the admissions office, where we're connecting students with returning students. I think the mentoring that we have with our tour guides in our Key Club, and the training that goes on, and the mentoring within that program, just to pick out some specifics, and certainly the advisory program, which you talked about. But I also do think there's more of a sense of providing the opportunity, giving the students and faculty the opportunity, whether it's in the dining hall, whether it's in the classroom, on the athletic field, in the dorm. You can go on to provide those opportunities. And so it's a little bit of both, but we're also intentional about understanding who may be slipping through the cracks, who feels like they don't belong, and making sure we identify who those students are to find them and make sure they're feeling as though that they do belong here, and that they are finding the right people that they want to be attracted to at this school. To help them grow independently and grow as an individual beyond the classroom. So I haven't seen other questions. If there's any that pop up here in the next few moments, I'll bring those up. But I haven't seen any additional questions.
Good. Well, I'd like to thank my colleagues for your insights and your great thoughts on this important subject. And I know if there are questions that come up, Jeff, you in your office are the ones that people can reach out to.
Of course, we're happy to do so. We're in the throes of the admissions process for any prospective families. Our applications are going to be due on February 1st. Give us a little bit of time to read those before we go out with our decisions on March 10th. For those families that would be re-enrolling, so our current students, we will be going out with our re-enrollment contracts in early February to those students. And then you will hear from us in our next installation of the Pride Perspectives on Thursday, March 6th, which will be covering the resilient boy, fostering healthy masculinity, emotional intelligence, and mental well-being, and how our school approaches that topic to help our boys be strong-minded and strong-willed to take on the challenges that they face every day in our health and wellness center, and their team, how they support our students, not just our trainers, Mrs. Tucci. So thank you very much, but also the other folks on our campus. So that'll be our next installation 2 months from today. But we look forward to helping answer any other questions that do arise throughout this process. And thank you again for everybody that helped today. We appreciate it.
Good night, all. Happy
Thanks.
New Year.
Good night.
Bye-bye.